Hey guys, welcome back. I wanted to share with you guys something that kind of happened. Alright, so when I was working on the bike, I was pulling the right side valve cover, and what happened was that the gasket tore off and it broke. So anyway, I had a set of these gaskets out in the garage somewhere, and they have grown little legs and decided to release themselves from the institution, feeling that they no longer have anything to offer. So yeah, they flew the coop. I don't know where they're at. So anyway, I went online and I ordered some new gaskets. I got some gasket sets in the mail coming. However, it's going to take a week and a half for those gasket sets to get here. So anyway, so there's a week and a half that my bike is going to be sitting out there in the garage, and I can't even start it up to test the adjustment that I did to the valves. So, you know, that was kind of eating away at me, and I was kind of, you know, fluffing it off. And I was talking to Jamie, JH586. And me and him were chatting back and forth, and I told him, I said, you know, if I wasn't so damn lazy, I'd just go ahead and go down to the auto parts store and get some gasket material and just make a gasket. And then it dawned on me, I got some gasket material out in the garage. So anyway, so I went out there, got my gasket material. Gasket material on oil or any type of application you're going to use there, you want to use cork, rubber impregnated, you know, gasket material. This is, you know, very, it's not too thin. I think that's, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, something like that. Anyway, so one thing though is that it's about the same thickness of this German made one. So we're all good. So what you do, okay, you should take your gasket material and, you know, you line it up here on the side, not to waste material or anything like that, alright? And then what you do is you take a Sharpie and you go ahead and you draw out the inside and the outside, okay, and everything with, I bought this at Harbor Freight, and I think it was $1.99. I mean, cheap. And so, you know, you get a little X-Acto set like this, you're good to go. And what you do is, once you get it drawn out and you get the piece of, you know, you get the piece cut out, you know, in roughness, you want to take that piece, and what I use is that cellophane clear tape that you use for, you know, packaging. You know, when you're going to send something off in the mail, that clear cellophane stuff that comes on a roll, and you got a little thing that, you know, you can go ahead and do the package with. I use that tape because it's strong and it covers the area that I need. And what I do is I go over the sides, you know, over the sides of the gasket material, and tape it down to a piece of plywood, or I have an old cutting board that came with a party tray that I bought one time, and so, you know, that's what I use it for. I use it for cutting on and stuff like that, for stuff like this. So anyway, once you get that taped down nice and flat, you take your X-Acto knife and then you carefully cut on those lines that are on the gasket material. You know, and you cut out these areas. And when it comes to these holes, this is the interesting part. These holes right here, okay? When it comes to those, let me show you a little thing here. Got a 303 case, got a 30-06 case. And guess what? That 303 case sits right in that hole and cuts a perfect hole. And for these ones out here on the end, I just use the 06 one, you know, and cut those two holes out. And it does a perfect job, and it doesn't cost you anything. Now you can go down to a number of different places. You can go online and buy a hole puncher. It's this big wheel thing on a pliers type thing, and you can cut them out. But this is free and it works fine. You're not adding anything, all you got to do is just take the case, put it on the gasket, and then very lightly with a ball peen hammer, you just kind of drive it through, and it'll cut that hole out of that gasket material. Perfect. You can also use this for leather. That's where I found this out. I had some leather work I wanted to do, and that punched the holes out for me. 223 actually. 223 actually makes a good hole. If you've got an old belt or something like that and you got to take it in another notch, just take a 223 case, set it on there, whack. Got a perfect hole right there for your belt. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you. This is the original gasket. This is 45 years old, and it's held up, but it is stiff. It's hard as a horse heart, man. This is definitely, it held up. I mean, it didn't leak or anything like that. But Herman the German, okay, they glue these on there at the factory. They put this glue, gasket cinch, and they'll put it on there, and then they'll go ahead and they'll actually glue that to the valve cover. The only problem is when you go to remove it, it's very carefully. You have to get underneath, where it might have pulled off, and then you got to go around, and you got to very separately, very, very, very carefully separate those with, a very thin-bladed knife, careful not to gouge the area, the sealing area. I decided to replace. This is the original valve cover, okay, and these are kind of sacrificial on a BMW because they get beat up. They hang out the sides. I've seen guys lean them over so much that they actually scrape. They scrape the side of the valve cover. So it really makes it unsightly. I decided to replace this one, and I'll tell you why. These studs here, they go through the head, and on the back of the head, you've got to put these little, 10 millimeter nuts on there. And it's a real pain, man. I mean, it is. I mean, once you stick it through there, you got the exhaust nut right here, and you're trying to get in behind there between the fins, okay, between the fins, and take that 10 millimeter nut and try to get it started on that stud. And man, is that a pain, man. Oh, you talk about frustration. You talk about frustration. Also, if you move it just a little bit, the nut and the washer are going to fall off, and they're going to go on the floor, and they are going to run for the hills. They are going to free themselves from that situation, and they're going to seek out their destiny on your garage floor, and you will never find them. They'll be gone. So, I went down to an auto parts store and went and bought a bunch of washers because that seems to be the case. If I drop a washer, I make sure it doesn't go inside the motor, of course. I always check that. But, yeah, it's always best to have, spare washers and stuff like that when you're working with this. Anyway, so let's get on to something else here. Okay, what they did on these valve covers is somebody went and used their brain, okay, and then what they did is they took a nut, they took a bolt, okay, a hex head bolt. They drilled through these deals, where the stud goes in. They drilled through that, and they put the bolt in on this side. So all you have to do is just hold the nut on the other side and push the nut in with a T-wrench, an Allen head T-wrench, and then just get it started, and then it'll spin on by itself, and it takes the hassle out of a very, very difficult job that should be very easy. So anyway, that's how you do that. So these are replaceable. They don't cost a lot. You know, and like I said, BMW considers these sacrificial. That's the reason why they're so cheap. I mean, this one here got some scoring on it. Other than that, it's in pretty good shape, except for that right there. And I suppose if I wanted to, I could go ahead and sand that down and everything like that. But why bother? Just buy a new one. You know, get the one with a bolt instead of a stud. You know, that was my line of thinking. Anyway, this is Thor's axe, and I wanted to share that with you. A little helpful hint. If you need a gasket, you can go ahead and make an adequate gasket, something that's going to get you down the road, just with your X-Acto knife. You know, the proper size gasket cutter, hole cutter. Now, one of the things about this is that, you know, these are all different sizes. So it fits any type of brass. I mean, any type of hole that you really need to knock through on a gasket, you can find that diameter right there, you know, on a case mouth on a cartridge case. So it works real well. Like I said, you need a Sharpie. You know, need your X-Acto knife. You need a cutting board and some tape, and you can make an adequate gasket. You know, the whole thing, good enough. You know. Anyway, the bike runs great. I was able to start it up, ride it down the road. Got everything up to operating temperature. Checked the gasket. The gasket's holding like a champ. The one I made, no problem. So there you go. This is Thor's Axe, and I'll see you in the next video.